Hello, welcome to today's video diary for finding my way with Pi, purpose, intention, and emotion. I am Pi. Today I'm thinking about what it feels like to hold space for yourself and for others. What do I mean by holding space? Well, imagine that you're going throughout your day. And if you're in Western culture like I am, your day's typically, probably pretty darn busy. Everybody's up in the morning. If you've got kids and a husband and a home that you take care of, even pets, you're taking care of the animals. Everybody's getting breakfast, getting ready, getting out of the house, going about their day, doing their activities. There's school, there may be extracurricular activities after school, there's work, there's meetings all day, there's taking care of the home, there may be social commitments. And what we get while we have interaction with people, when we're moving so fast, the interaction typically stays surfacey. It can be cordial. It can be great interactions. How you doing? I'm doing great. You can share a laugh with someone. You can share a smile. You can make someone's day by sharing a smile. I'm not saying interaction at a surfacey level is bad. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm asking you to contemplate is, when in your life and in your day today do you have space for deep conversations? When do you have space for deep reflections, especially when connected with another person? If you're lucky, you've got a couple of good friends you can do this with. Maybe you can do this with your spouse. What about your kids? Or what about your spouse? Do you know the Surgeon General in the United States has essentially named loneliness as the #1 pandemic in our country? That tells me that we need the space for deeper connections, more meaningful conversations. Now, I want to just tie this together with some, I'm a synthesizer, so I study quite a bit. Currently in a master's program for happiness studies, which this misconception of happiness in our country is that it is the absence of difficult emotions. And that's not true. It is the acceptance of the whole human and a life with meaning in caring for our bodies and each other. So as I'm studying through this program, I also read books. I synthesize the information. When I see a common theme reflected across cultures, across regions, across people, to me, that speaks of a truth of our humanity, a truth of nature, a truth of the law of the universe, if you will, that we should probably honor and respect for our wholeness and for our whole being and well-being. And one of those truths comes into play with the intersection of a life with meaning and community. A life with meaning, interconnected to others. Tara Rai Trent, the author of The Awakened Woman, an absolutely amazing human being. She writes in her book, regardless of our differences, perhaps shaped by class, race, gender identity, and geography, ultimately there is one thing that makes human beings profoundly fulfilled. It is a life with meaning. In Tara Rai's culture, and in, I believe it is the Shona language, she is from Zimbabwe, they have a way when they greet each other, the language that they use, the meaning that they use is, I see you. And the other person says, I am here. There is a recognition and an acknowledgement and a reassurance that the other person is there. Caitlin Curtis wrote about Indigenous people in North America. She wrote the book Native. And one of the things she says in her book is, this is where community comes in. This is where the hard work of brushing up against the stories of others comes to meet us, comes to ask us difficult questions of ourselves. If we hold grace for our own stories, we can reach across to someone else to say, I see you. I see your story. They matter. Let me ask you, at the end of the day, we live in this country where there's a pandemic of loneliness, which tells me that many of you who see this video diary may in fact be feeling lonely and yearning for that connection. Where do you hold that space for yourself or ask others to hold that space? Where do you hold that space for others to connect deeply with you? It seems like we're so busy that we don't know how to slow down and hold this space. And then even when we do, one of our greatest hurdles is that when we get still and hold this space for ourselves, it hurts. There are things there that are uncomfortable and painful. There are things there that we don't know what to do with, that make us feel sad, disconnected, hurt. Maybe there are hurts that we have yet to mend, and so we're avoiding it. Maybe we keep telling ourselves, I'll handle that sometime in the future when I'm ready. What might our lives look like if we had that space held for us in our families and with each other? What might it look like if we just tried to hold that space for someone else, non-judgmental, to just say, I see you, to just listen to their story? Every single one of us has something that hurts, has had to endure something. And often that's the thing we need others to see and share. We may keep it silent. We often do. Clearly we do. Because we're afraid of the hurt. The shame and anger of it holds so much power over us when we lock it into silence. It's when we speak it out loud, like Brene Brown teaches us, that it loses power over us. There is an energetic connection that we need with other human beings to share this load. Beyond that, we not only need to share our own stories, a form of validation of our own lives, but we need to hear the stories of others because we learn this way. And it's a give and receive. We receive them. We receive their story. And one way we give back is by helping to share the load, helping to dissipate whatever energy that's hurtful and painful there for them, for whatever they're enduring. And sometimes maybe it's something very happy and delightful that we get to share and we get to celebrate. And that is just as important to get to do together, because there's a deep bond and a deep connection forged when we get to do those things together as well. At what point can we accept someone else's story is different than our own, and yet it's just as meaningful, and that it's even more meaningful when we look in their eyes and see the human that they are, and that their story matters, and we see them? I've noticed something absolutely incredible about my life now that I have been doing these daily video diaries for 2/3 of a year. I am sharing my story. And yeah, it's on the micro level often. It's a daily video diary where I'm grappling with my emotions. What's going on today? What are my thoughts? What am I thinking? And it helps me get through the painful ones, accept myself, own my story, find my voice, and ultimately live a fulfilled life. And if you zoom out, you will see a story arc that once self-acceptance and self-reliance, as Ralph Waldo Emerson would say, takes hold, there is a healing and a blossoming that begins to happen. I have also noticed, as others hear my story, they begin to share their own. I've had so many people open up to me about their stories, and sometimes it's almost like they blurt it out upon seeing me in person, that they need to say it. You know what that tells me? First of all, I am honored. I am honored to hear your story. It matters to me. I see you. Second of all, the speed with which the story bubbles up and out and forth is an indicator that it's been ready to come out for some time. It just needed someone who was safe and who could acknowledge it. Someone to say, I am here. Now I know there's therapists, there's counselors, and God bless every single one of them. I know I have benefited from therapists and counselors in my lifetime. It is a public service that they do. And sometimes access to those resources there's a barrier. It's quite expensive in many cases and not always quickly accessible because they're booked. They could be booked out for a year. It's hard to get in. If the money barrier doesn't stop you, the time constraint does. Isn't it interesting that so many people have to have a therapist? Do you know in other cultures outside of America that this role of having someone to confide in, that this ritual, if you will, of sharing your story with your family and your community, a group of women or friends, is built into the community? If we had something like this, it might just help us endure before it gets to an intensity level that we need professional assistance. I believe that humans are innately humane. And in fact, there are philosophies of life in the world that believe this. One of them I spoke about during my video diary previously. It's called Ubuntu in Zimbabwe and South African regions. They believe that goodness is innate and that we do not exist alone, that we are deeply rooted and connected to community, to others, and that as we succeed, we help others succeed, and that comes back to us, and it's an upward positive spiral. We are missing this element of the human condition in our society at a broad level. And the indicators that are confirming this are the pandemics and epidemics of burnout and anxiety and depression, stress, loneliness, and even suicide. So we've got some things right, but we're not quite there yet. And in the spirit of humanity, we do always strive to create and grow and blossom and spread good. It always prevails. And I think that we are just ready to ride this wave of transformation individually and together so that we can begin to accept our wholeness and our humanity in an interconnected way with each other. And so I go back to what I asked at the beginning. When was the last time you had a deep and meaningful conversation with someone where you felt safe to talk about your story and your vulnerabilities? And who was that person? And is there an opportunity for you to be that for someone else? That one small change can make a major difference in someone's life. Do you hold this space for yourself? Do you give yourself compassion and acceptance to feel the hard feelings that you have? Holding space, I think, is so important for ourselves and for others. That is what I'm thinking about today, and how to create more of that so that we can learn to accept our whole being, lead to collective healing. I'll leave you with some thoughts on what I now understand has been me shaping my life philosophy since I started this video diary, this personal growth experiment. Purpose, intention, and emotion, it's a life philosophy. Purpose is being connected to something bigger than me, adding meaning to my life. Intention, it's not only direction, it's also the process of healing a wound. And emotion, well, emotion is basically heart in motion. Follow your heart and trust life. Maybe that's the new life philosophy. It certainly is one I'm going to continue living by. Thank you for being with me on this journey. I am so glad that you're here, and I hope it helps you too.